What's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, a physique update from Nick Walker at 4 weeks out. Today officially marks 4 weeks out from the New York Pro 2024. Now, I know in the last video we talked about Nick's legs, gave some critiques, but honestly, in this one, I'm going to be a little bit more complimentary because we're just talking about his upper body here. I still think that Nick is the favorite to win this show. And I still think if you look at Nick's upper body, he is by far the most muscular and freakiest guy that we know of so far, at least, in this lineup. We talked about how Quint Beastwood is doing the show now. I just talked to him yesterday, actually. Martin Fitzwater is doing the show. Tony O'Burton's doing the show. Beef Stew is doing the show. It's shaping up to really be pretty competitive because even if you look at Nick in this video, how absurdly muscular he is, how freaky his upper body is. He's just, I know people call him brick, but he is. I mean, he's just stacked with muscle. But even so, while I do think he is the favorite to win this show, I don't think it's like a situation where, like when we were talking about the Arnold Classic going into the Arnold, and it was like, clearly Hadi Chupin's probably going to win this was pretty much the majority of the conversation, like slam dunk. I think it's a little different here because initially it was Nick versus Tonio. That was the two guys that we knew, and it was like, yeah, when it comes to Nick versus Tonio, I think Nick's probably got that all day. But you've got these younger guys like Martin Fitzwater, like Quint Beastwood, that took some time off. They made some improvements. They put on size. Martin especially, I think Martin made tremendous improvements to win that Detroit Pro. So we haven't seen them next to a recent version of Nick. Actually, come to think of it, I don't know that we've ever seen Martin and Nick ever do the same show. Actually, I don't know if we've ever seen Quint Beastwood and Nick do the same show. And both Martin and Quint have made tremendous improvements. We have seen Martin and Quint Beastwood do the same show, though, the Texas Pro 2022, I believe it was. But I think this competition has an interesting element to it because these two young new guys, we haven't seen them against Nick in these new versions of themselves, Quint and Martin. Who knows what could happen here? And like I said, you look at Nick's upper body in this video, you can't really see, there's no real flaws here. I mean, a lot of people don't like his midsection. I think he does a tremendous job of controlling it. I think he's got really deep separated abs when he is controlling and flexing them. And I do think it's going to come down to his lower body, which you can't see in this video. And that's why I place such a focus on it in the other video that we did about Nick. I feel like that's going to be the make or break thing for him at this New York Pro. But upper body wise, in this video, by far, I think the most impressive upper body in this lineup. But if you're talking about crazy V-taper in the upper body, I would say you have to lean towards Quint Beastwood. Now, next up in the news, William Bonac's latest physique update. He says he's about 8 weeks out here. I asked him which show he's doing, and he says he's doing the M Pro Classic in Spain, which is in June. And I still think that's the same show that Michael Krizo is going to be doing. Honestly, William Bonac, another guy that's taken a break, he looks phenomenal here. And I feel like this is a name that we haven't discussed in a video in quite some time because he's been inactive. He's been focusing kind of on other things, but he doesn't look like he's missed a step. He looks incredible here. I mean, if you think about it, we didn't see him at the 2023 Mr. Olympia. We didn't see him at the Arnold Classic Ohio this year, which we typically do. So I feel like his name has kind of been set aside from the conversation of the top guys because in bodybuilding, the memory span is very short. A lot of people say you're only as good as your last show. A lot of people only remember your last Olympia or your last professional win. And for a guy to have missed, the Olympia and the last Arnold in the bodybuilding timeline, it's a long time. But I mean, keep in mind, this is impressive because William Bonac, I believe, is 41. He's in his 40s. And he's been away for a pretty substantial amount of time. I was kind of wondering for a little bit there if he was going to actually retire. And I said this in a video before, but I really feel like the top 6 at the Olympia this year is going to look entirely different because you've got so many guys that are competing right now and are qualifying right now that weren't there last year. William Bonac is one of them, and I think he likely will qualify. But think about it. The first 2 guys to qualify for the Olympia are really good bodybuilders, and they weren't in the Olympia last year. Rafael Brandao and Martin Fitzwater, neither of them were even there last year. And honestly, I think both of those guys are top 6 material at the Olympia. if Martin looks how he looked, especially at the finals of the Detroit show, I think he's a top 10 Olympian easy. And then even going into the New York Pro, Nick Walker, he wasn't at the Olympia last year either. And if you think about last year's top 6, you had Derek, Hottie, Sampson, Brandon Curry, Andrew Jacked, and Hunter Labrada. I honestly don't know if Brandon's going to compete this year. He's kind of been MIA for a little bit. Andrew Jacked and Hunter still have to requalify. But think about some of these guys. Nexzilla is another one. Good Vito is another one. If they continue to compete and they qualify for the Olympia, I think they could really shake things up. Carlos Thomas Jr., we still haven't gotten to see him compete this year. He was supposed to do the South America, and he couldn't. But there's so many new guys that are really good that could crack this top 6. I think your Olympia top 6 looks entirely different this year, and I think William Bonac could be another guy that comes into that conversation. Now, next up in the news, I want to talk about Big Ramy for a minute, because Big Ramy, he's been kind of quiet on social media, but in the past few days, he's posted a couple posing videos, both of which I believe are old. The first one from a couple days ago, I think, is from 2018, and then this one, I believe, is also old because it's filmed in Oxygen Gym, and he hasn't been there for years now at Oxygen Gym training. And he does look really impressive in this video that he posted today, but it's old. And I wanted to talk about it because I've been getting so many messages about Ramy over the past couple days of people saying, wow, Ramy's back, look how good he looks, etc., etc. But these are old videos from before he had these, nerve issues and these injuries, his back, his triceps. So of course he looks good here because they're old. And I'm not really sure why Ramy is posting them. I mean, a lot of bodybuilders do post throwback videos. It's not unusual. But what is unusual about it is it's not like a throwback to a stage shot or a competition. It's like old gym posing videos, which I think is odd that he's not posting any current ones. Fortunately, we don't really have to speculate for very long about what Big Ramy looks like, because in 3 short weeks at the Pittsburgh Pro, he's going to be guest posing, or at least he's on the list if he shows up. It is the show that he famously missed a couple years back despite committing to do. But he's supposed to be, he's on the list. He's supposed to be at that guest posing. So we're supposedly going to see how he looks in about 3 weeks. So I've been getting all these messages of people saying, well, Ramy's back, look how good he looks. People excited for the Ramy comeback. And I'm excited to hopefully see Ramy compete at the Olympia this year. Another example of what I was just talking about, how that top 6 could look entirely different. Ramy is supposedly coming back this year. I have a really hard time seeing Ramy not being in that top 6. But I actually had the opposite feeling of, like, a lot of the messages that I've been getting have been like, well, Ramy looks so good. This is such a good thing. These updates are a good sign. I kind of feel the opposite. I think it's probably not a good sign that Ramy's posting old physique updates from years ago and not posting any current ones. I think that's not really a good sign. Because like I said, I could see posting, old Olympia clips or old shows that he won or whatever. But old posing clips doesn't really make sense in the gym. It's like, well, I looked better in the gym back then than I do now, and I don't think that's a great thing. But I am a Ramy fan, so I'm hoping that he does actually compete at the Olympia, and I'm hoping that we do see a roaring comeback from Ramy that shocks everybody. I would love to see that. Because the great thing about bodybuilding right now is we've had so much interchangeability with the Olympia title since really Sean Roden won. Because when I first really started following bodybuilding very closely, it was the Phil Heath era. And it was like every single year, you knew who was going to win. Phil, every year, time after time, with the exception of maybe the 2014 Olympia with Kai Green, where people were kind of, some people thought that Kai should have won. But for 7 years straight, it was like every year at the Olympia, you knew it was going to be the same story. Phil Heath was probably going to win. But now, you had Sean Roden, you had Brandon Curry, you had Big Ramy, you had Hottie Chupin, and you had Derek Lunsford. That's 5 different Olympia champions in just 6 years. And if you look back at the history of bodybuilding, there's really never been a more interesting time to be a bodybuilding fan, because usually you have these dynasties of a Mr. Olympia winning and then winning for years, and then that's their title. You don't really ever have a 6-year span with 5 champions. And think of all the new talent that's coming up that hasn't even won an Olympia yet. The Samson Dowdas, the Nick Walkers, these young new guys that we just talked about earlier in the video. We're in a phase of bodybuilding right now where we're kind of in this in-between process where we're trying to figure out who's the next dynasty going to be. Who's the next guy to come and just hold this title down for 4, 5, 6, 7 years? And we haven't really seen that yet. And I guess that kind of brings me a little bit into my next story here. Chris Bumstead's latest physique update, which we haven't really seen too many of since the Olympia, as he awaits the arrival of his daughter, which could be the reason why he might not do another Olympia. And I was going to say this is kind of a good segue, because if you look at the past 6 years of bodybuilding, like I said, 5 different champions, I think that's part of why Chris has been so popular in classic physique. Obviously, there's a lot of other factors, but Chris is like the Phil Heath of classic physique, while we don't have one in open bodybuilding. Chris is the guy that has won 5 times the last 5 years, and kind of every year it's like a slam dunk for Chris. You know he's going to win. So Chris has kind of built his dynasty in classic physique while there wasn't a dynasty in men's open bodybuilding. So there was kind of a gap to be filled there for the fans that wanted like a dominant guy like Chris. And obviously, like I said, there's 100 other reasons why Chris is so popular, but I think that is part of it, is he became champion when the men's open bodybuilding title was in a very transitional phase, trying to find the next guy that was going to really hold it down, and we still haven't really found that. And while we've been in that process, Chris has been just holding down that classic physique Olympia. And the reason why I thought this physique update was significant, because yes, he's getting very close to the birth of his daughter, but he's still holding on to a physique that could prep for an Olympia. I personally think he will do this 2024 Olympia, and I think he will retire at this 2024 Mr. Olympia. I feel like he wants to, he even said he thought about retiring at the last one. I think he wants to retire on the Olympia stage, not just, some point after the Olympia not competing and then announce he's retired. And I feel like Chris is a very sentimental guy. I feel like he wants to bring his daughter on stage for at least one of his Olympia wins. So I think he will do this one. I think he'll win 6, and then I think he's going to hang it up there. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you have not already, and as always, I love you guys, appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out. Alright guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also check out my Instagram at NickStrengthPower. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.